welcome. I, Saylee Jog, on behalf of Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, welcome you all to the first interactive session at the Center for Excellence in Entrepreneurship and Development at GIP Pune. For our very first interactive session, we have with us Ms. Rashmi Bansal. Ma'am is an author, entrepreneur and a motivational speaker. She has written 11 books that have been translated in 12 languages and have sold over 12 lakh copies. Ma'am is also an advocate for women entrepreneurs, while at the same time being a mentor to young entrepreneurs and students alike. Welcome, ma'am. We're very glad to have you here with us today.
Namaskar. Thank you, Saylee. It's a pleasure to be here and I look forward to this conversation.
Ma'am, so to begin with, let's start with the most popular belief that a lot of Indians hold is that if you come from a family business, you tend to have it easy and it's rather easy for you to be successful in any business. So to start off with, in your opinion, would you agree or disagree with this?
Well, historically, yes, in India we've had a lot of business communities. I myself also belong to one, what we known as the Baniya community. I think that, for example, if you're born in the home of a classical musician, then maybe from early age you're exposed to the music and, shishya aa rahe hain aapke ghar pe. So you have a slight early exposure to these concepts or, to that field. But it doesn't mean that others cannot enter the field and become successful. So I think in my books, I've always made an effort to actually showcase this idea that anyone can become an entrepreneur. Also, it's not necessary that every person from a business community is highly successful. Both my grandfathers were not very successful in their business. They had to shut it down. My father became a scientist. Then I became an entrepreneur, So I think wherever there is a will, there's a way. So perhaps there is a slight edge if you're from a business family, because like in Gujarat, for example, everyone is encouraged to start a business. In fact, they say service kyun karni hai. Right. So there is that little bit of acceptance to be a businessman or businesswoman, which may not be there if you are from a different kind of family where everybody is a professor or everybody is a farmer. Right. So I think that's my view on this.
Right. So to extend on what you just said, so barring, let's say, external environment, what according to you would be the top 3 factors that contribute then towards the success of a business? So if it's not only familial background, what according to you are the 3 major factors?
Yeah, I call it the 3P factor. The first is you have to have a passion for what you do. Anything that you do, if you do it very well, if you give a good product, a good service to people because you care and you are passionate, like in Hindi we say junoon, you have that hunger within you to do something different, to succeed. That's very important. The second is to have a purpose, like a higher purpose maybe. Of course, a very small business obviously would be more towards sustenance and livelihood. But as you grow your business bigger, maybe providing other people a livelihood also becomes purposeful. Like if you're employing 10 people in your small business, in your shop, in your factory. So that gives you a higher purpose. Ki along with my family, I'm supporting 10 others. Or if I am, creating some kind of service which helps people, like if I'm writing a book, and others get inspired by reading my book, then it's more than a livelihood for me. I get that satisfaction. So having a purpose and also then having that perseverance to stick with it, because early years are always difficult. When you're in a starting stage, you will go through many challenges because nothing that you learn anywhere will prepare you for being an entrepreneur on the ground. Every day you're solving different problems. Whether you're this big or you're a multi-crore company, there are daily challenges. So you have to have that mindset that, okay, I will persevere, I won't give up easily. And I'm not looking for a quick and instant success, ki 1 saal ho gaya, 2 saal ho gaya. You keep trying new and different ways to become better. So that those are the 3 P's, I think, which are common to all the entrepreneurs I've ever met, interviewed and, written about.
Yeah. So your journey is also quite a fascinating one. I mean, there was the magazine, and then you started writing, and of course we all know you're from IIM, and you're one of those few people who I think turned down a placement offer, and that's something that takes everyone by surprise, right? You assume that people go there so that they can get better opportunities. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey and what motivated you to do what you do?
Okay. So I was born into a scientist family. My father was an astrophysicist, and almost everybody I grew up with went on to do, engineering or PhD in science. But I sort of realized that although I'm a good student, I'm not interested in maths and science so much. I mean, my inclination was more towards writing and language. So after 12th standard, I left science and chose arts. And it was a very big topic that, people said she used to be very intelligent, what happened to her. So I tried to follow my passion in that way. While I was a student, I started writing articles. So my first article which got published was when I was a second year student in Sophia College in Mumbai. And you know how it was, you had to send your article by post, and then immediately after 1 week I got a rejection slip. So I tried again, and then a third time I sent my article, and each time I got the same little tiny rejection slip. So I think I could have concluded that I'm not at all talented as a writer and given up, but what happened to me was I got even more determined कि करना ही करना है. So I kept trying, and after 40 weeks, on the 41st week, my article got published, and I got paid 100 rupees for that. So that was the start of my writing journey. But yes, because I had promised my father I will go to IIT, but then I didn't. I said, okay, I'll try for IIM. And when I got admission, I thought, let me go and see what all this management education is about. However, at the end of it, I still felt that I'm not cut out for a corporate job. I spent my summer training, selling, not selling, but doing a survey on Surf Ultra and Ariel washing powder. And I thought, like, ye zindagi bhar mein nahi kar sakti hu, it's not a bad job, but it's not the job for me. So I didn't take the placement, and I went to Times of India and worked there for 2 years. And then I started my own publication house. I used to print a magazine called Jam, Just Another Magazine, which was very popular among the college students, even here in Ferguson College in Pune. And it was a wonderful experience. But of course, at that time, people had not heard of a concept called startup or entrepreneur. I just did it because I felt that ab nahi to kab. And I ran that magazine for 15 years. Of course, when internet came, then it became very difficult to sustain, We had to struggle a lot to get advertising because people said, oh, we can go to Facebook. So eventually, we had to shut down that magazine. But then, by that time, I had written the book Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish, which became very popular. And then I thought, okay, let me become an author, write a whole series of books, which is inspiring stories of Indian entrepreneurs, not Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and all that, but हमारे जैसे आपके जैसे लोग who are from middle class backgrounds, who always thought, okay, we'll study and we'll settle down, but then somewhere they had a dream, so that kind of became a different path for me. So that in a nutshell is like how I became a writer. But I've always wanted, I've been writing in many forms, in newspapers, in online. I had a blog, then I wrote for Business World, I wrote for Rediff, and then finally I became an author. So like Mr. Narayan Murthy says, the journey of overnight success, it takes 20 years. So that's how it.
Right, fantastic. So talking about small and medium enterprises and people who start off on their own. If we take a look at a little bit of the data, what we know is that there are around 66.3 million units spread across the country, and these are all MSMEs. Now, these MSMEs also contribute close to 6.11% of the manufacturing sector GDP. They contribute about 24% of the GDP that comes from the service sector. So what, according to you, are the challenges faced by MSMEs, and within that sector, do the micro enterprises face any special hurdles as compared to the small and the medium enterprises?
Yeah, I think it's always when you go from 0 to 1, that is one stage. You go from 1 to 10, then you go from 10 to 100. So there are some practical difficulties which these entrepreneurs face. When you start, you're a one man or one woman show. आप सब कुछ खुद कर रहे हो. As you grow, you have to get people to join you. So that's the first hurdle, that who will join you, because you are not giving them a very high salary or not known. So somehow you have to get people who may not even be that skilled or trained, but you have to, आपको जोड़ना पड़ेगा अपने साथ. So that is one of the initial challenges, how to even grow from a 1-man to 2-man, 5-man team and retain those people, because everybody has very high expectations ki what do I want from my career. So one is getting the right people who can be also very entrepreneurial. Like if I am doing something, I don't want them to just be, maybe you need people who can be very enterprising themselves. So that is one. And as you grow even bigger, you need to be a leader and delegate more and more to them rather than do everything yourself. So the leadership capabilities of the individual, they come into play. Then of course accessing the market, if I have any kind of product, how will I get customers? So marketing is a very big challenge. Some people also feel shy to tell others ki mera, ye product hai. They're not good at telling a story or giving some kind of branding to their product. If I'm selling a pickle just in a jar, it's just a generic pickle. But if I call it mom's love or something, I give it a name, I give it a nice packaging, then more people get attracted to it. If I'm able to build a story, maybe if I can do some digital marketing. So I think there was this one person on Shark Tank from Bihar who didn't get any funding, but then her business exploded. She's from Bihar. It's called Jhaji Pickle. So these ladies from Bihar who are from the Jha family, so they have really, they just by telling their story on that program in one day, they got like as much orders as they used to get in a month. So telling your story and branding is important, and of course getting the money or finance is important, because if you have to grow, I have to first produce the pickles, then I'll get the money after some time after the shop sells it. So I need working capital. I need to maybe invest in some people. I have to pay their salary, and I will only get the returns after 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. So credit access is also difficult. So I think these problems are widely known, but one issue also I feel is that lack of confidence or lack of vision also. कि मैंने इतना कर लिया बस बहुत है, इससे ज़्यादा मुझसे नहीं होगा, which I often see also in women entrepreneurs especially, because they feel कि it will become too hassly. Right now I'm managing by 4 to 6, 8 hours a day I'm working. If I grow my business, तो कौन देखेगा उसको? And that becomes also a barrier, because in my mind I don't have that vision of growing big. I'm satisfied. I'm not maybe satisfied, but I'm like इतने में इतना ही होगा. This is my capability.
Yeah.
They're not going beyond the comfort zone.
Right. Yeah, because I think in Touch the Sky, you have, we come across so many of these examples of women who have really broken the boundaries, so to speak, and, really tried to make a mark for themselves in the business world. And I was about to get to that. So other than this one possible barrier that's of vision that they see for themselves, what else, what are in particular some of the barriers that probably women entrepreneurs within the micro segment face in India?
Yeah, for the woman, the biggest barrier is in her own home. So if there is no support from her husband, from her in-laws, from her children, then how will she go out and do anything? So I think whatever stories we're reading are from people who have that support. Others would say, no, I cannot, risk losing my family because I have my dream. So if I am expected to be at home and make some hot chapatis or whatever the, expectations are, then obviously I cannot pursue something very ambitious, because I have very restricted life and timings when I have to, do certain duties. I can't outsource it to somebody else. There are families will say, no, we can't employ a cook also. or the mother-in-law will say, no, हमारे यहाँ लड़कियाँ नहीं करती हैं सब. So there are social barriers, I think, which women face, which men obviously don't face because they're expected to go out there and earn. So I think it's changing gradually, and especially because you can do a more home-based business and sell online, and that could be the start for people like this also, because once the income comes, then things start changing. Then people feel, oh, okay, this is a good thing, as long as she's not, she's still managing to fulfill all her roles. And then a time comes when the support also starts coming, because they realize that she can't do it alone. I think the children give a lot of support now, and also eventually husbands also give. But sometimes, the women have to fight for it.
Right, no, of course.
Without like being aggressive, but just being assertive that, okay, I want to do this. This is how I'll manage both the things.
Right. So speaking of the microscope of an enterprise, what comes to mind is the kind of definition we have for MSMEs in India. I find it to be very broad. The thing is, even if you look at the data, close to 95% of the firms that come under the MSME sector have a turnover of less than 1 crore of rupees. And so do you think that there is a need for us to further work upon that definition and the classification? Are we bundling too many firms under one very broad category, so to speak?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I mean, for example, a business which has no employees is like a very small business, right? So somebody who is under 20 lakhs is not liable for GST is one category by itself, And when they go from category A to B, then maybe they need some support. And many of them actually are not able to comply with as they grow, they find it's becoming more complicated for me. When I was small and I didn't have to, do too much paperwork, it was much easier for me. I think the level of education also matters. Maybe if you're educated, you can follow the rules, you can go online and check. There are many people. Let's take a very simple example. There may be somebody who's selling, who's standing outside Ferguson College and selling vada pav and becomes a very famous vada pav seller. I mean, if you really look at the income, it may be very high. It could be like running into a couple of lakhs also. If he's selling 500 vada pavs a day. But can he now think of starting a shop? Can he then, call it, I don't know, some name build a brand and then maybe franchise it? I mean, would that be possible for such a person? I mean, would they have that vision? Or even if it's a small person but wants to go from point A to point B, how would they do that? I don't think there is much of resources for them. Also not in the local language. अगर वो मराठी में सीखना चाहे, हिंदी में, तो कहाँ मिलेगा information? Everything is in English. So what happens sometimes, the children, the next generation, they are able to help because they are studying, and even in terms of setting up a website or doing WhatsApp marketing or during pandemic, so many people they started selling the farm produce directly. So somebody was selling chikus, they sent a message, everybody from our building bought chikus. But what if you don't know how to do that? If you are just a pure farmer, you are not very well educated, you are not able to write in good language, तो कैसे बिकेगा? So those are some of the things which I think, we do have to look at it as different segments, because there is a huge gap between somebody who's 5 lakhs and 1 crore also. For 5 lakh guy to think of I'll go to 1 crore is a very big dream, right?
Absolutely.
So I think micro, nano, and then micro, and then MSME, these could be different categories.
Right. And speaking of that, since you hinted a little bit towards the kind of maybe support that is needed either from the society or from the government, what is your take on the current policies that we have for firms that are a part of the MSME sector, and again micro in specific, and what maybe according to you is something we could be doing differently from either the center or the state government point of view?
Well, I think most of the entrepreneurs I meet, they would say that it should be easier to run a business, There should not be so many licenses and so many compliances. I think as far as I know, to start a restaurant, you need several licenses. So everything can be made easier, so that starting is not such a big challenge. And there is not so much opportunity for someone to come and harass you.
Right.
You know, that is also a problem, that if you start something and then, you know, somebody comes and asks you for money, and all those things are there. And I mean, there are many problems. I'm sure policymakers are very much aware, but I do not know why they don't address it, you know. They do want, I mean, we talk a lot about Atmanirbhar Bharat, and, you know, we want to encourage more and more people to start, but then we're not making it easier for them. So whatever recommendations have come from so many different committees, they can just implement those.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that would make life much easier for everyone.
Yeah. So I was reading a couple of examples in both your books, in fact, Connect the Dots as well as Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish. And you have these inspiring stories of a lot of them who gave up their regular well-paying jobs and became entrepreneurs. You yourself are also an entrepreneur, so you've taken that risk yourself. In your opinion, is being an entrepreneur in India worth the risk? Is it for everyone? Can we very easily say that, of course, if you want to start a business, you can do one?
Yeah, I think I am among the lucky people who had a choice that, okay, I can either do a job or be an entrepreneur. But there are millions of people who have no choice, and they are not entrepreneurs because they want to, but that's the only way they have to survive and, you know, to run their homes. So these are two different categories of people. Yeah, I'm not saying everyone should be an entrepreneur, like everyone need not be, but I think we all have to have that mindset of taking initiative and think and act like an entrepreneur. I mean, I've even written one book called Shine Bright, which is about entrepreneurship. That is like, even if you're in a job, you can still have the spirit of enterprise. You know, you can, instead of just going and doing tick box, okay, these are my 10 things which I need to, you know, do to keep my job. I think a little more, I take initiative. I mean, like in my first job in Times of India, like I used to keep going to my boss and saying, okay, can I do this? Can I do that? 9 out of 10 things she said no. But then 1 out of 10 she said, okay, try kar lo. And most of those ideas did not require money. Like a long time before Tinder, I mean, I had started a column called Saturday Date. It was a dating column. At that time, there was no option except matrimonials. Right. So this column was like where people can get to meet each other. So, you know, you could put a small ad about yourself. Mostly we had boys only advertising, but then I got some of my own friends also, ki aap bhi dalo. So it became quite popular, and it didn't cost any money. It took some space in the newspaper, and it became like a talking point. So I'm just saying that to be an entrepreneur means, to me, the most basic definition is to sort of take charge of your own destiny. Not to be sitting there helpless, अरे मेरे से कुछ नहीं होगा, मैं क्या करूँ? Somebody should come and uplift me. Yeah. You know, you try to uplift yourself through various means, whether you're in a job or whether you're, you know, employing other people.
Yeah.
It's about, you know, being a person who's a creator and not just, मतलब जो चल रहा है उसी में आप, you know, steering your own boat basically to an extent, whatever extent is possible.
Right. Right, of course. So then if according to you it is more about being self-driven or having that passion to start a business on your own, of course supported by the right atmosphere in the country and in the society. As a country in India, where do you think we're missing the mark when it comes to you know, our entrepreneurial journey? Because we see a lot, we hear a lot about people saying that you should start things on your own, you shouldn't be so dependent on, you know, you mentioned the entire Atmanirbhar Bharat, so a lot about that is about, you know, having manufacturing in our country, and for that you need people to start such enterprises. So where do you think as a country we're missing the mark?
See, I don't know much about the macroeconomic picture and so on, but what I see is that there are hundreds, there are thousands of individuals who are making a difference. Anywhere you go, like one of my books called Take Me Home, I used to get invited to very small towns like Kakinada and Belgaum and so on. So I had to stay there overnight. So I told the organizer that, can I meet some entrepreneur, local entrepreneur, you know, who's doing something interesting. And every place I went, I found that there are people who are doing amazing things. Like in Belgaum, there is a company called Servo Controls, and the founder Deepak Dadoti, he is from Belgaum, but he later went to US, worked there, came back to India because he got inspired by Dr. Abdul Kalam, and he said, I want to do something for India. And he wanted to set up something in the area of servo controls, which is a very specialized area of engineering. He could have done in Bangalore, but he said, no, let me do in my hometown. And at that time, it had become a 100 crore company. I'm sure today it's many times that turnover. And he was employing local people who worked in Bangalore. Said, okay, if I can work in my hometown, why shouldn't I come back? So I visited his factory, and so I think that, of course, when I have talked to him, and he's told me that it is not easy to deal with the various issues which are there in India, but you find a way. So I mean, he does a lot of work with government. In between, there were some issues of you have to apply for tenders and things like that, and so there was a time when there was no business for him, but then again he managed to get it going. So somehow, if you want to do it, you can do it. But I think that the issue is more that there are lots of unemployed youth who are there in our country today. They are all trying for competitive exams. They may not get success there, and then what are they going to do? Are they going to become disgruntled and going to be just doing some very menial job? Can we inspire them to think of doing something of their own, like a small business? Every corner of the country we have a possibility. I think at least a number of businesses can be started with very low investment or zero investment also. I mean, why should people, suppose I was a bright student, I can give tuitions to other children. Maybe I don't take a large amount, but I start that way. Food business, there are many possibilities, but people have to believe that I can do it, and that it should be respected as a profession also. So right now, sometimes people feel that no, if I have a government job, then only I'll get the respect. Somebody else has to give me the respect. There should be self-respect. So that's what we want to aim for, that every person in this country. See, when you have your own business, you have an infinite possibility of growth.
Of course.
You could go from here to any destination. So they have to hear and see these stories, and not just the stories of some very big famous companies called unicorns, but people like themselves.
Right. Speaking of smaller examples, I think there was one on your YouTube channel about a man from Kerala who was creating wealth from waste, essentially. So, of course, we all know that there is a lot of talk about sustainable development going around these days. So, how would you, associate entrepreneurship with sustainable development, and especially since a lot of people have this mindset that sustainable products are usually more expensive, and therefore they tend to veer away from such products. So, what tips would you have in mind for entrepreneurs who could engage in the production of such processes and products whilst still being competitive in the market?
So two things. First of all, India is, I think, one of the most sustainable economies in the world, right? Like when we talk about circular economy, which has become a buzzword in the West, didn't we always have a circular economy here? What was it? Raddiwala was coming to our house and taking the paper. What is, we have a mochi, if your shoe or chappal breaks, you go and get it repaired. In any other place, you have to throw it in the dustbin. So as a culture, we've always been more towards repair and reuse. And hand me down, many of us, we'll never throw something in the garbage. We'll give it to somebody else who can use it. So that is number one. So all those things also are part of sustainability. I wrote a book on Dharavi, Spirit of Enterprise in Dharavi. So in that, one of the biggest industries is recycling. When you go there, everything is being recycled, whether it's dalda tins or it's wiring or whatever. Everything from all corners of Bombay comes there, and it's recycled, reused, repurposed. So we already have that kind of a ecosystem which others have to create now. They don't have it. Number one. Number two is that we have a very big problem, right? Then that means the opportunity is very big. If you look at the garbage problem in our country, huge. So there is an opportunity there for somebody to make a business out of it. And there are a lot of people who've done it. Somebody specializes only in electronic waste. Somebody specializes in some other aspect, like they work with the municipal corporations and do something. I think our municipal corporations have to use services of entrepreneurs to really do their job well now, because they're not able to handle the waste. And that same waste can be actually economically productive, right? So I think there are many opportunities. There are people in this field already. If somebody wants to get in, they have to go and first survey and find out what is the problem, and then think of the possible solutions. You can't solve the entire problem. You have to take one small area and say, okay, I'll work on this.
Right.
So,
right, of course. So since 2018, I think gradually as a country we have seen a lot of movement towards the adoption of digital technology in our country, and if anything, the last 2 years of the pandemic has really hastened the process with online payments and, like you said, WhatsApp marketing and advertising on Facebook, and the outreach has grown exponentially. So what, according to you, is the role of technology in entrepreneurship in general, but particularly for the micro and, like you said, the nano enterprises?
No, I mean, I think it's a godsend, because any remote part of the country, I went to Bastar. It's one of the very remote districts, right? From Raipur, you have to travel 8 hours by road, and there I met a girl who is making mahua laddus, and which have a lot of iron and lot of nutrition, and especially for pregnant women and so on. She works with tribal people.
Right.
Now she's selling it online, right, through WhatsApp marketing. Sitting in a very remote area, she's able to cater to anybody all over India.
Yeah.
So I think the opportunities are huge, like some things which would not be accessible, and now there is a value for the farm fresh items or for handicrafts. Earlier people didn't value it so much. Now they realize कि we want pure, we want organic, we want खेत वाला मतलब असली हमें चीज़ें चाहिए. So I think there is a lot of opportunity. People are taking advantage of it, but again, I think we have to connect some enablers to them. Everyone may not be able to do it on their own. There may be many people like SHG groups which are doing a great job, but then they are not able to get into this digital world.
Yeah.
Because their skills are not there. So we need to help them.
Yeah. So a lot more outreach activity.
Yeah, maybe, all the young people are connected with digital, so we need to connect some person from the local college who can go and help them, maybe set it up. Everybody is very smart. Once you teach them, they can do it.
Yeah.
But maybe to start it off,
Right. And probably access to the digital technology can be somewhere where then the government steps in and
access to सबको है ना, because everyone has a phone now. Because I would hardly think, I think that problem is not really there.
Absolutely.
But how to use it may still be an issue.
Right, of course.
Or how to connect with the courier company which is going to come and pick it up, how to package your products so it reaches without breaking. So there may be a lot of those issues which I have to address before I can do e-commerce.
So more about supply chain issues and logistics, so to speak. Right.
All these thousands of MBA students all over the country, they can probably, help out in this matter.
Of course. So you often talk about dreaming big, and for all of these small enterprises, what do you think are the factors that enable them to convert their dreams to reality? What are some of the factors that you would say that would help someone to move from just having a thought but actually then bringing it on ground and seeing it come to life?
Yeah, I think the same. I think the same idea that where there's a will, there's a way. जहाँ चाह है वहाँ राह है. It's like the call has to come from within, and then वो रास्ता खुलता जाता है. That is what I've seen. You can't wait for the perfect moment when everything will be, like a red carpet will be rolled out. There'll never be such a time. So you just have to start doing it. Those who are in a job, sometimes they keep thinking, then one day they get fed up, they leave the job or they lose their job. So that, that tipping point comes. Other people, like I've met a person, for example, who didn't get a placement in his college, and actually that turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because he was forced to start his own company, and he learned open source ERP, and then he started consulting with companies in different parts of the world, and now he's a pretty big person in that field. So sometimes when things don't go right for you, actually that new path opens up. So I think it's just about, like when you want to swim, you have to jump and you have to then splash around, and eventually you will float, then you swim. You have to just jump into it. You can't be standing and just watching others swim, and keep thinking, oh, I'm dreaming of swimming. It's something you have to do and experience for yourself.
Right. Wonderful, excellent. Thank you so much for making the time, for us today, and sharing your beautiful experiences and all the real life scenarios of people who have actually made it big. And I always think when you have these experiences, it's easier to believe that you can do something rather than, just listening to stories. So thank you so much. And again, on behalf of everyone at the Center and the Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, I would really like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to you. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely. And my wish for all those watching is that you stay hungry, stay foolish, dream big, and make all your dreams come true.